Welcome, everybody, to the American Space Museum. I'm Mark Marquette, and we're so glad you're with us to stay curious with Mr. Nick Thomas. Hi, Nick.
Good to see you again, Mark.
Oh, great to see you again. Nick has joined our monthly visitors here that want to talk about space in general and our wonderful space shuttle era, to be specific. Nick is the lead communicator at the Kennedy Space Center, 35 years. Have you seen in all your 35 years, how was the crowd out there for Artemis? Did you see anything like that?
Great crowds. The thing that I noticed mostly about the crowds in the wake of the scrubs were the fact that everybody was although they were disappointed, they were more than understanding. I mean, their attitude is, let's not fly it until it's right. And I can remember before Challenger that when there was a scrub, there would be a lot of public criticism of NASA, very unfair. But after Challenger, everybody understood what was involved here. And everybody out there, although they were disappointed, they said, let's do it when it's right, because they realize how important this test flight's going to be.
And what's the latest word about the another attempt?
Well, right now, they are looking at the possibility of September 23rd or 27th. But before that happens, a lot of other things have to happen. They have to replace and inspect those seals on that hydrogen line. Then they have to test the seals under pressure to make, cryogenically and under pressure to make sure that the fixes worked. And they're also looking to get a waiver from the Eastern Test Range on those FTS batteries on the stack, the Flight Termination System batteries. They want to get an extension of about 2.5 weeks. And the thinking is that the technology that they would be able to work for that 2.5 week extension. So the request has been put in with the Eastern Test Range, and they're waiting to hear from them now.
There you go, our Stay Curious fans out there. Ear to the ground. Mr. Nick Thomas out there knows what's going on out there. And why are they being so special, careful, and so forth? Well, Nick, did you see the abort of the Blue Origin?
Yes, I did. That just reminds everybody that this is not a game of marbles out there. This is still dangerous. This is still potentially deadly. Luckily, of course, there were no people on board that spacecraft. But on the other side, it was good to see that their abort system worked properly. But people remember that there's, like I say, it's a business with a lot of inherent risk. It's very unforgiving of carelessness. So these things kind of tend to remind us that everybody needs to keep their eye on the ball whenever we proceed with one of these flights.
There you go. That's well said there, Nick. Kind of, if you don't know, Blue Origin launched a suborbital flight that had a lot of uncrewed, had a lot of experiments on it, and they had to abort it about 30 seconds
Just
into flight.
going
We
in.
had the last successful flight of that. One of the crew members, Sarah Sabri, sat
Right.
here last week, and we
Right.
had a delightful conversation with Sarah. But I bet that makes her look twice and think back.
I think that if I was Sarah, I'd look back at that and say, well, if there had been a problem, I'd have probably been okay because that abort system worked so well.
Yeah, it did. It did. And speaking of launches of crewed people, look what we got behind us on our green screen, Nick. 61
Yeah.
years ago
Oh, wow.
was the launch in 1962 on this date
Yep.
of two of some really astronauts that are real characters.
Two remarkable men, Pete Conrad and Dick Gordon. Dick was a student of Pete's at the Patuxent Naval River Air Station at the Navy Test Flight Center at Patuxent River. Alan Bean was also a student of Pete Conrad, so Pete had some long coattails, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, a remarkable crew. Dick Gordon performed that EVA where a lot of people remember he straddled the Agena and Pete's inside the spacecraft saying, "Ride 'em, cowboy."
Ride 'em, cowboy.
So they were they're a very happy pair, good friends all their lives.
We're gonna celebrate that mission here in a minute, as long as we're gonna talk about President Kennedy's great speech, one of the greatest speeches of any president, was given today to Rice University on that hot afternoon, uh, uh, throwing down the gauntlet that we're going to the moon. We'll talk about that here in a minute, Nick.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got shuttles in September. 3 shuttles launched, Nick, on September 12th.
Mm-hmm.
This date in history, including the first African-American woman to go to space, Mae Jemison. So that's just a little bit about what we have for you here on Stay Curious today. And and everybody's saying, Mark, shut up, get out of the way, let Nick talk. He's the guy that was there in some of this history, and I will. But I got to say hi to Marty Winkle, my cameraman, co-producer for this Stay Curious program for over 2.5 years. How you doing, Marty?
Good.
Good. We got a microphone that we're going to get hooked up by Trekkie Techies, so Marty can talk to our Stay Curious listeners out there. And he's writing down some of you that are watching today. We've got Chris Callie, I know, is watching. Want to kick off here, Nick, with this image of the base to space. Didn't talk to you in our little pre-production chat if you're in on this, but a documentary maker, Mike Cotton, with some backing of other documentary professionals, have put together the definitive documentary about Mobile Launch Platform 2.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And you know that Mobile Launch Platform 2. Tell what you know about that platform.
A lot of grand history behind that platform and all the platforms that have survived since the Apollo program. Just like all of Complex 39, construction started on all that in 1963 and was completed in 1966. 3 years to put all that infrastructure together. A remarkable effort, and one that again, you'll touch on when we get to the Kennedy speech, how that inspired everyone to reach to those kind of heights.
Absolutely. This is a historic mobile launch platform that's taken out by the crawler for Apollo 11, SLS-51L, return to flight, Mars missions, stuff like that. And our friend Mike Cotton has put the documentary together. We're going to have the world premiere Sunday, September 26th, just 2 weeks from yesterday, at the Hyatt Place Hotel on US 1. So though we're just getting this together quickly, it will be an event that you will not want to miss. And this premiere, the money is going to be returned to the American Space Museum as a fundraiser.
It's outstanding.
And we're talking about a $25, $30 ticket to see this, what is going to be a really a good documentary. So we'll talk more about that throughout the week. But here is, on this date, 60 years ago, President John F. Kennedy delivered an address to Rice University to inspire Americans to support NASA's mission to the moon. We all know that speech. We choose to go to the moon. Hair rises on my arm every time I recite that.
Yeah.
How does that speech affect you all your life?
That is a speech for many years. I listened to that speech in my car going to work. It still excites me to this day. It's a speech I think that should be played in high schools around the country every year to instill in the young people what the nature of commitment is really all about. The thing that I remember most about that speech, and when you watch it on YouTube or any other channel, you'll see that toward the end, Kennedy raises his head and he goes off script. And it starts when he uses a phrase, "But I think we're going to do it." And he talks about the need to do this. We shouldn't overspend. We shouldn't waste any money, but I think we need to spend enough to get the job done. And he said, I believe that Texas is going to play a great part in getting this country, getting a man on the moon before the end of the decade. Of course, the thunderous applause. But in that one stretch of speech, and you'll notice, as I say, during the time, he never looks down at the script. Mm-hmm. He's extemporizing. He's speaking from the heart. He's truly speaking from the heart. And that was where the true fire of the speech was, because he saw that he, John Kennedy, was personally committed to getting this done. He believed in it, and he was going to do whatever it took to get the job done. So if you watch, as I say, toward the end of that speech, watch when he goes off script, and you can see the fire in his heart when he talks about this commitment.
Well, I'll do that this evening. We posted the link to that from the Kennedy Library in Boston, and you can read this translation of the script in 13 languages there.
As you should. It should be something that speaks to everyone, no matter what their nationality is.
To paraphrase one of my favorite spots is when he says that it's going to need ideas and materials that we haven't even created yet,
Hmm.
and we don't know exactly what we're gonna do, but we know that we'll do it.
And he totally laid out the whole flight architecture for the Saturn V, talking about taking off from the Earth with more power than man has ever known before. And he went through the whole thing. He talked about the command module coming back through the atmosphere, twice the temperature of the sun, almost as hot as it is here today.
Yeah, yeah, right, yeah, right,
And he
right,
got a
yeah.
great laugh from
Yeah,
that.
that is a good one. And those of you that seen it many times, I'm watching, Johnson behind him there, and all the people behind there. They're just sweltering. It
Yes,
was a
yeah.
really hot day, and I've actually saw a football game in Rice University
Uh-huh.
in that stadium one time. But I think the Beatles played there at Rice Stadium. But I don't understand, Nick, why July 20th isn't a national holiday. I mean, really, this is mankind's greatest adventure, not America's greatest
Hmm.
adventure. It's still mankind's greatest adventure.
Absolutely. It was something that, for that brief period in time, I think the whole world was totally united in that moment as the vehicle landed and also as Armstrong stepped out onto the surface of the moon. And everything else was put aside for that brief time so we could stop and celebrate the ingenuity and the basic drive to explore, not only of Americans, but of all people, that innate desire to see, as President Kennedy would have said, what's over the next hill.
Yeah, awesome. So I hope you enjoy that speech. It's, like Nick said, very inspirational. We thank you, Chris Callie. He sent to me this artwork that is his rendition of
Mm-hmm.
Kennedy with the colored pencils, and his father, Paul Callie's famous stamp of the first man on the moon. Of course, Chris Callie, is a great friend of our museum now, and hopefully you bought one of his T-shirts. We'll show you the Callie T-shirts later this week.
One of the great stories that came out of the Apollo 11 moon landing was that apparently on the night of the landing and the first step on the moon, someone had gone out to President Kennedy's grave and put down flowers and a note that said, "Mr. President, the eagle has landed."
Ah, that's cool. Yeah, that's and we're gonna see our own Space View Park where people put flowers out there.
Mm-hmm.
But hope you're inspired. While you've all heard the speech, it's part of every documentary, of course, on Apollo 11, and delivered, on this date in 60 years ago.
Well, it's interesting. They play the highlights of the speech quite often in documentaries, but to get the full impact of that moment, you really have to hear the whole speech.
Yes, you do.
It's a
You do.
masterpiece. It really
Yeah,
is.
it is. And as hot as it was, Kennedy being so extemporaneous at the end, like you
Mhm.
say, people are like, "Come on, man, we need to get to our lemonade."
Yeah.
But that he was good at that, being off the cuff and as a politician, connecting with the people out there. And Nick, when I talk to people like Marty, who worked on lunar module,
Mhm.
other Apollo people, do you think they would have done it had he not been assassinated?
We talk about that from time to time, and people forget that during the 1960s, after the president's death, there was a lot of debate about the necessity of going to the moon. It was not a done deal, politically speaking. Um, I think it's a question that I can't find an answer to. I would certainly hope so, but politics is a strange creature, and it's sad to think that we needed the death of a president to drive that goal home.
Mm-hmm.
But that might have very well been the case. But honestly, I couldn't say one way or the other if we would have gone or not had he survived for his term in the presidency.
A lot of them have probably told you, like me, that out of the ashes of Apollo 1 was
Yes,
that commitment
definitely.
of Kennedy in the back of their mind before the end of
Absolutely.
this decade.
Well,
So,
the fire, it's and Walt Cunningham and several others have said this, that as hard as it is to say, if it hadn't been for that fire, we wouldn't have gotten to the moon on time, because we wouldn't have taken the time to make the repairs that were necessary to the spacecraft. And even though the Block 2 version was in the pipe and was being brought forward, there were just so many things that had to be done to make that spacecraft totally reliable. And then we saw in Apollo 7 that indeed it was.
And we saw in Apollo 13
Yeah.
that the insulating all the wires from moisture and things like that, the little things, probably saved that crew's life
Sure,
in
absolutely.
there. Well, hope you're all enjoying this tremendous insight from ASM friend here, Nick Thomas. We're going to look a little bit about his job here out there towards the end, but let's talk about these two very popular astronauts.
Yes.
There on the left is Dick Gordon, and Pete Conrad, folks, is always distinguished with that gap in his teeth there. And we're looking behind here at the beautiful launch. And Nick, there's a Saturn V back there. What's that all about?
That's Saturn 500F. That was a test article that was taken out to the launch pad for fit checks and validations of pad systems, and was out there. Luckily, at the time we launched Gemini 11, and luckily some photographer had the foresight to take this beautiful picture of Gemini in the foreground and Apollo in the background. And that was, of course, in 1966. And whenever I see pictures of 500F out on the pad, I always hope that at some time or another, Gus and the crew had gotten a chance to see that vehicle out there to know it was coming.
That's a cool thought there,
Yeah.
Nick. This is pad 19.
Yep.
39A is how far away?
39A from pad 19 would be on the order of 10 to 12 miles, I'd say.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
10 to 12 miles,
Yeah, I
and it
think
still
so.
looks
Yeah.
that huge.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, Saturn, the 500F, the fit check is in a lot of pictures that people think it's the real deal.
Yeah.
And we'll tell you one time how to distinguish that one time when Nick and I were talking about that. There's a good clue that Ken Havicott told me,
Oh,
the great collector, of how to always know that that's the fit check
well,
model.
one thing you might want to know is that over at our Saturn V facility, the first stage of our Saturn V on display
Yes.
is from 500F.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll get out there and see that and remember that. Of course, the U.S. Space Walk of Fame Foundation 26 years ago was founded to create Spaceview Park, the
Yeah.
only place in the world where you can put your handprints on Dick Gordon's. All right.
Yeah.
Pete had passed away in 1999, so there's a beautiful bust out there of him. Sandy Storm is the artist that did this. Sandy's still around occasionally. But when I say the only place in the world, I mean that, Nick.
Absolutely
And this is a
right.
Taj Mahal or pyramids to us here.
It's a brilliant monument to not only to the astronauts, but to the men and women who worked throughout Mercury, Gemini, and Apollo to put this country on the moon. It's a remarkable place to go.
So what's a story you have about these two guys here?
Well, a lot of stories. One I remember in particular was when Pete was training for Apollo 12 with Alan Bean. During these training sessions at the KSC inside the building, inside the flight crew training building, there was a walkway that visitors, when they came off the bus, they could walk up this elevated walkway and sometimes be able to look down and see the crew rehearsing their lunar EVA on the floor there. Well, Pete had a volcanic vocabulary, which is to say he cussed like a sailor.
Yes.
And he could let loose a stream of obscenities when things went wrong. And of course, the flight controllers of the guys on the test consoles could hear all this. The public couldn't, luckily. But one day, Alan Bean went to Pete and he said, Pete, you got to be careful. If you slip and you cuss on the moon, we're going to be in big trouble. And Pete just smiled and he said, Al, my boy, so you don't realize old pros like me know when to turn it on and turn it off. It's the amateurs like you who slip and make the mistakes on a live mic.
That's interesting. And the crew of three there, Al Bean, who became a great artist, of course, later,
Yeah.
were all Navy chums.
Yep.
They trained together, like Nick said. And when Al Bean died, they're all buried, I understand, within sight of each other
Yeah.
at Arlington Cemetery.
Absolutely.
One of the greatest Apollo crews ever, Apollo 12. And Pete Conrad and Dick Gordon had 8 days with a spacewalk. And you remember any of the highlights of that Gemini 12 mission?
Well, I can remember particularly the films when they showed Dick Gordon outside during the spacewalk, and he was trying to attach a tether from the spacecraft to the Agena. They were going to perform an experiment with a tether when the two vehicles had separated. And Dick could not do this job because he needed both hands to do the job, but he couldn't hold on. So the only way you could hold on was to straddle the nose of the Gemini and tie off the tether. And Pete saw him out there and saw how he was straddling that spacecraft. He said, "Ride 'em, cowboy."
Ride 'em, cowboy. And you want to hear Pete Conrad and Alan Bean's excitement landing on the moon.
Oh.
YouTube their landing there. They're just euphoric.
When they pitched over and Pete looked through the LDB, through the landing designator pointer on his window, and he saw Cone Crater centered exactly in that crosshair, that's when he got excited. He said, Pete said, "When I saw that, I knew this country could do anything."
Pinpoint landing next to the Surveyor spacecraft that landed there 2 years earlier, and quite a crew there, quite a crew. Well, Nick, we anything else that you know about Gemini 11 to add for our Stay Curious?
Well, in
speaking
for Dick Gordon, I had the chance to work with Dick on 2 or 3 different occasions on publications over at the Visitors Complex, and he was as funny as Pete, but his humor was more low key. It was more subtle. I'll say it was more devious. He could slip something in there, and it might be 30 seconds before you said to yourself, "Did he say that?" But Dick was a character. Dick was a real nice guy, a fun guy. Everybody loved working with him. He and Peter and Al are all sorely missed.
Yeah. You want to see some fun? Google Apollo 12 parody, folks. You know what I'm talking about. The movie video.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Our own Hazel Banks is a star in it.
You couldn't do that today.
No, you could. You could. And you know, the cussing, the wild lifestyle and so forth was tolerated. These were test pilots. This was the 1960s. We're glad we've cleaned up our acts a little bit, you know, I guess.
I'm not necessarily glad. But, you know, it is what it is.
It certainly is.
I would have liked to driven a Corvette at 90 miles an hour down ICBM Road.
Yeah, exactly. But Apollo 12 parodies are fun. You get the humor of these guys to the max there. So, well, Nick, we love talking about our shuttles of the month. There's 11 shuttles this September.
Busy
there.
month. Yeah.
You've got the list in front of you there too. There we got some great missions. 65 astronauts, 5 women can say they were in orbit in September. And at this moment in history, 6 shuttles and 41 people are orbiting the Earth on September 12th. We're going to show you the little chart we put together of that. But 3 of these missions launched today. 48 was launched in 1991. Oddly enough, 47 was launched a year later in 92, and then STS-51 in 1993. And we're going to share a little bit about 47, the first flight of first African-American woman. A husband and wife went to space. And we got pictures from the USAC brothers to share. So, Nick, any of those pop out at you as something that you were involved in? Or?
STS-48, a couple of friends on that one, Sam Gamar and J.O. Creighton. J.O. was the commander of the mission. And it was the deploy of the Upper Atmosphere Research Satellite. Sam Gamar, who is a frequent guest of ours over at the Visitors Complex, tells some great stories about getting ready for these missions and the whole process from crew selection through training, through flying the T-38s to TCDT and to launch. So Sammy is a great storyteller. He was asked one time during a show, someone asked him, they said, "Sam, what is the most realistic movie ever made by Hollywood about spaceflight?" And Sammy thought about it and he said, "Spaceballs" by Mel Brooks.
Really?
That's Sam.
Space, okay. Yes, I seen him years ago. I haven't caught him, but he comes out there 2 or 3 times a year.
2 or 3 times a year, huh?
And a great guy. We're going to see a picture of another great guy here when we talk a little bit about your job. But you've got there 47, 51, and 48 there, all in the middle, launched on the same date today, September 12th.
Yeah.
We think that's kind of cool. To talk about what you do out there, tell us about the Astronaut Encounter. They do, and then you go over to do autographs. I don't have any pictures of the encounter. I'm going to save those for another appearance by you because I want some better pictures than I took in there to give people a flavor of it. But at 11 o'clock and 4 o'clock, the astronaut of the day gives a wonderful presentation to the public. You MC that, take questions. And what I love that Nick does is he puts a lot of the visuals together for the astronauts. And you, sir, have picked out some one-of-a-kind pictures always. I enjoy the slideshow.
Well, when you start a PowerPoint presentation like that, you start with the basics. You go from crew, mission patch, then you go into some of the training photographs, and then from there, launch day, suit up, out to the pad, launch, and then some highlights from the mission itself. So that's basically the framework you start with. When you get in touch with the astronaut, you start to talk and you say, tell me about some of the special things and so forth, and some of the things we need to talk about. And we will hunt out individual pictures that they talk about and put them in there to flesh out the presentation and also to give it that more of a personal touch, the astronauts' personal stories. So we try to balance in those presentations, try to balance the historical with the personal. And the people people very much want to hear the personal. They want to hear what it was like for that individual and some of the things that he or she went through during the flight. So getting that first-hand perspective, it's what I call learning the history from the people who made it. And that's what's special about Astronaut Encounter.
It is special. Here is the autograph session. It's held after the encounter where you can get a book autographed or a lithograph. The Mike Baker was out there last week. I wanted to see Mike. I never heard him before. He gave an unbelievable geography lesson. I've seen some gorgeous pictures. We all see the pretty pictures from space of the Earth, but they mean so much more when an astronaut's explaining to you what you're seeing.
Yeah.
And that you're not seeing the cities with your eye, but with a telephoto lens you can. And things like that. He was great.
One of the things that they tell us about are using the high power lenses on these cameras to spot certain features on the ground. And Roger Crouch taught me about how to find the pyramids just outside of Cairo and where to look. And what you do with a landmark like that is you look for it. You look for the shadow, and then you can see where the actual object is. And the pyramids from space are just breathtaking. And they're amazingly close to Cairo itself.
Yeah.
People, when they see motion pictures, they think of these things as being way out in the desert. You got to take a camel to get out there, 2-hour trip. But actually, Roger and Ann were in Cairo, and they went to a restaurant for lunch before they went out to the pyramids. And they were under the impression it was going to be a long trip. So they sat down to eat, and then they opened up the curtains, and they turned around and looked. And just outside the window, the pyramids were right there. And Roger said it's a razor sharp line from the grass to the sand. And the pyramids are right out there. The neat thing about seeing the pyramids from space in these photographs is you look around the perimeter of the pyramids, you see that the sand there is whiter than the surrounding sand. And that's caused by hundreds and hundreds of years of people coming to visit the pyramids, and they've tamped that sand down so tightly that it's down to the second surface. So whenever you look at the pyramids from space, that white perimeter around the pyramids, that's caused by people coming to visit them for hundreds of years.
I'll look at that with a different light next time I see those images. Mike Baker had a couple of those images. Here you are as the astronaut wrangler there. Nick is so polite and just a perfect gentleman all the time, though I'm sure there's once in a while where you have some aggressive fans or people in there. But there's Mike autographing some things. They enjoy this, don't they?
They really do. It's a chance to connect personally with the astronaut and to bring either something they purchased in the gift shop or a piece of memorabilia to be autographed. And Mike will have the time to answer a question or two sometimes. And, while you do have to, keep the line moving because there are people who are waiting, Mike very much enjoys making that personal connection with the people. One of the unique things about Mike in my experience is the fact that he is the epitome of the test pilot astronaut, because he attended the U.S. Navy Test Pilot School at Tucson River Naval Air Station in Maryland. He attended that as a student, and then went back and served as an instructor. And then later on in his career, he had the chance to do the fleet acceptance testing for the F-18, which would have been a plum assignment. But he wanted to go to England to serve as an instructor at the Empire Test Pilot School in Farnborough, England. So he went to Empire. He was there as an instructor. And that point on his resume was probably what distinguished him when he was being considered for selection as an astronaut.
Very interesting.
Remarkable guy. Goodness gracious, I think something on the order of 5,400 hours in 50 different type of aircraft. Just absolutely remarkable. We like working with Bakes.
Yeah, he was Bakes. Is his nickname.
Yeah, that's Bakes.
Yeah, he was first. He was very good, nice guy to talk to.
Yeah.
He was asking me about his memorabilia. When I told him that 25 Mach patch there is an easy $500 bill to space collectors, he's going, "You're kidding me."
No.
I go, "No, sir." I said, "That's coming from you. There's only astronauts get that 25 Mach patch. That's it. That's the only ones that get it out there." But yeah, I look forward to. So if you're booking a trip out here, you're going to Kennedy Visitors Complex after you go to the American Space Museum.
Yeah.
Or you come to us afterwards, be sure and see these astronaut encounters and get an autograph. Take your kids to it. It's a great thing out there that Delaware North does. And Bruce Melnick is the new astronaut this year that's taken over from Mr. John McBride, who served the Space Center so well for over 20 years. Didn't John do that?
Yes. John first came on board. I think I mentioned earlier that John came on board when they were looking to get one of the orbiters for display at Kennedy Space Center. And John pretty much set everybody straight, saying, don't think that you've got a divine right to this thing. You're going to have to work hard, and you're going to have to make a hell of a presentation in order to get one of these orbiters. And we did, and we have it, and we're very, very glad.
It looks beautiful too. Yeah. I'll tell you, I love how it's suspended from the sky there.
That whole facility has won so many awards, and I've heard people say that it is the best space and the best aviation display they've ever seen, and they've seen these displays all around the world.
Sure, that says a lot when you got Smithsonian, Wright-Patterson.
Oh yeah,
all these iconic places up there. Well, Mike Baker, we can't wait to see you again. Out there, Kennedy Visitors Complex. Where's Mike live?
Mike's
California
in
still?
He's in Texas,
area?
yeah.
Okay. Marty, we got a question?
Yeah, Larry Petzko is asking, what is the cost? What is the extra cost for the encounter?
The encounter is part of your admission, so there's no extra cost involved in that. So when you got your admission ticket and you're in the gates, you can come and see us at 11 o'clock and 3:15 at the University Theater.
That's right, which is right across from the golf ball, NASA golf ball. They have teed up there outside the, at least it looks like a golf ball.
That's what I say.
Is that what you say in there? So, well, Nick Thomas, we've got, I was telling you about our, that we love our shuttles. Don't freak out, everybody. There's no test on this, okay? Karan Conklin, my wonderful executive director here, and I put this together. She's the document maker there. But today, lined up, the date of the month is on the bottom. On September 12th, we have STS-69 in orbit, 105, 106, 64, 115, all right, 48, 47, and 51 are all orbiting Earth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And on the 16th, we will have 79, make it 8 shuttles orbiting the Earth. And we'll talk more about that throughout the week. But Nick, I love juxtapositions about this that deal with human beings. You've got over 45 humans orbiting that can say, on September 12th, I was orbiting the Earth.
Yeah.
And the year falls like this. Not many missions in December, obviously. But, well, I mean, am I crazy for wanting to put this together?
No, I think it's an invaluable historical document because it so well illustrates the expansion and the improvement of the technology and the abilities of the shuttle program as we move through the years. these missions that we're looking at right now were all part of the golden age of progress for the space shuttle program. We had done so many things in the program that had revolutionized the sort of things that we took for granted, like EVA. We totally rewrote the book on EVA. We rewrote the book on what could be done as far as working in space in the microgravity environment, the ability to carry these large payloads up into orbit, the ability to bring these large payloads back if we had to. And these were things that were undreamed of back in the 1960s and the 1970s. That spacecraft made so much possible that we now take for granted today, that it's absolutely incredible. And as I look at this chart of these patches and think about the sweep of this history in front of me, it always amazes me. I don't think that people in the general public are going to truly appreciate what that vehicle was all about until maybe 10 or 20 years down the road, when they look back and they say, well, we really did a lot during that time, and we just totally rewrote the book on spaceflight. And now we're busy rewriting it again. So,
and a lot we have well put there. We got 2 mirror missions this month.
Yep.
79 and 86. 2 what I call ISS hard hat missions, 106 and 115. You got 5 science payloads. That this was the pioneering science that's being conducted right now on the International Space Station. Exactly. They laid the groundwork for that. 1 TDRS, Tracking Data Relay Station mission, which was so important for communications, and Space Lab J, that is the mission we're going to talk about here next, and we will have Mikey Haddad on here on September 28th, a Wednesday, to talk about Space Lab J. He's our payloads manager guy. So let's look at STS-47. All right, 30 years ago. 30 years ago was 47. Wow, think about that. That's time flies.
Time passes rapidly, doesn't it?
Because I'm thinking 1992. Is that really 30 years ago? Yeah, it sure is, Mark. We're going to see some beautiful pictures from our friends Mark and Tom Usiak, who were there 30 years ago. Here you have the crew.
Oh, yeah.
Commander, you know the crew names there.
Yeah. Hoot Gibson and Jay App and Mark Brown and Mark Lee and Jan Davis, Mae Jemison, and Dr. Mamoru Mori.
This was Hoot's 4th of 5th space flights. Kurt Brown, who had 6 space flights, this is his first flight. You've got Brown, Morai as a rookie. Lee and Jan were rookies, and Mae Jemison was a rookie. So, here's the logo of it there, representing the Japanese involvement with the module.
And so very appropriate, because this was the first large step in our what is now the ongoing cooperation that we have with JAXA, with the Japanese Space Agency, and the remarkable people the remarkable men and women who've come through the program because of that cooperation. Not only astronauts, but technicians, flight controllers, and so forth. And it's a remarkable thing to stop and think about the progress this partnership has made. I can remember that on one flight that we did when I think it was when we were retrieving the space flyer unit for Japan. We had a Japanese astronaut on board there, and we were working very closely with the Japanese government. And they had captured the payload, and they were about to bring it back in, but we had a constraint because of the sun angles on the solar panels, and a decision about bringing this thing back in had to be made. And the flight director called payloads and said, are we ready to take the next step? And she said, well, the customer is still talking, the customer being the Japanese. And the flight director said, well, we got 3 minutes. We need a decision right now. Now, fast forward from there to a science conference I listened to on the International Space Station, and all the scientific communities were represented in this conference, in flight, of course. And when they came to SCUBA, which is the Japanese Mission Control Center, I mean, they just had it down 1, 2, 3, 4, totally organized from start to finish. Remarkable people. I've had the opportunity to meet a couple of the Japanese astronauts, including, goodness gracious, her name just went right out of my mind. But she was the Yamazaki.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yamasaki.
trying to remember her first. Naoko.
127.
Naoko
Like
Yamazaki,
yeah,
right?
there you
Yeah.
go.
And just remarkable people, and I look forward to their continued the continued cooperation, not only on the space station but also on the Artemis program, and eventually going on to the moon. I think the Japanese are just born to this business.
They are. They're great. I've met Hoshide when he was
Aki
here
Hoshide,
for
yeah.
the launch, and what a gracious guy.
Yeah.
We have a great relationship with Japan, Florida, that was bringing 4 or 5 times a year 30 students into our museum. I know they go out to Kennedy's Village Complex, and we missed them during the COVID, and they're starting to come back. But what great partners! The International Space Station. Canada's another tremendous partner with us, and I was telling Hoshide that I was jealous that they had the outside terrace there to do experiments on the back porch there.
Yep.
And did he work the manipulator arms there? He goes, oh no, that's all remote control. He goes, I don't touch any of that. I'm going, oh darn, I was hoping you'd get to pick stuff up outside the window there. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, look up Kibo. The Japanese module on the International Space Station.
That is, by the way, reputed to be the quietest module on the space station.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and the very quietest is the logistics module that's attached to the overhead. But they said that the Japanese module is the quietest on-board station.
Huh. Well, I bet they got some good TVs up there, too. Here is Mark or Tom Usiak. So, when the astronauts come in for their flight, we're talking about 30 years ago. Yeah. What's happening here?
Well, the crew here has come in on their T-38s. They've flown in from Ellington and Houston to the Kennedy Space Center, and they're meeting the press here. And this happens twice during a flight flow. They'll come in for the terminal countdown demonstration test, which is about 3 weeks before launch. And then about 4 days before the launch, they'll come in for the final time, getting ready to take off. But here they are talking to the press. It would be commander's call as to whether they would take questions or not, but quite often they would take 2 or 3 questions before they got in the vans and went off to crew quarters. But this is always an exciting day, having the crew come in. They'll fly over in the T-38s. They usually take a pass over the shuttle landing facility in formation, and that's always quite a neat moment. And they come in, they pull up on the ramp, they've got the canopies open, they all step out one at a time. So walkout or crew arrival was always a big thing here at Kennedy Space Center.
And there's, I don't know, 30 or 40 media people there, right?
Yeah, at any given time, somewhere around 20 or 30 people or so. Yeah.
Here's a close-up of Mae Jemison 30 years ago. Good shot there that Tom Usiak took, flying out of there. And here's a picture. That is our friend Sharon Caples McDougal. Hi, Sharon. She was the suit tech, and here she is suiting Mae up. Of course, Sharon, an African American herself, this was a special moment of her life to do this. And we've had Sharon on the show, and we'll have her back talking about working in Houston. Yeah. And one thing she mentioned was that when Melvin, Leland Melvin brought his dogs in. Leland's pumpkin suit shot is famously with his big dogs. She was freaking out, Nick, because she didn't want those dogs to claw into her spacesuit.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he had to go through some ropes to even have the animals come into the facility.
There was probably a memo that came out after that saying, we're going to ease off on the pets in the photo lab.
Yeah, right. No more pets. So that'd be in there. But those are famous pictures. Yeah. We love those. Hi, Sharon. Glad that you shared this moment in history.
Thanks for your service, Sharon.
Absolutely. There is Mae a couple years ago giving a talk up there. She has her own career laid out now. She only had one mission, and she has gone into, she founded a couple different, I got her a little bit of her bio here, wanted to say what she was involved with. She wrote 2 books. One's a children's book, Find Where the Wind Goes, and then the other book, a true book, 4 children's book series. She was on. She's a big Star Trek fan,
Yep.
and was on one of the episodes there.
Mhm.
And she's participated in all kinds of things that you would expect her to. She's a very smart woman. Samford and Cornell University degrees. She's a doctor from Cornell,
Mhm.
medical doctor. And there are many figures of her. NASA Women, Lego released many figures of her, Margaret Hamilton, Sally Ride, and Nancy Grace Roman. So her famous quote is, "Never be limited by other people's limited imagination."
Yeah.
So, May, we hope you're enjoying somewhere the 30th anniversary of your famous flight. Here is the walkout
Yeah.
of another famous couple, Nick.
Yep.
Kind of known by NASA or what? This couple is the only married couple to go to space.
So far, the first married couple to fly in space.
Tell us about that.
Well, as I understand, they actually got married after they were selected for the crew.
Uh-huh.
So the first is still there. They are the first married couple to fly in space, and people will ask from time to time, well, how's a married couple get along up in space? Well, a married couple gets along like anybody gets along up in space, and that's to do the job, because that's what you're there for. You're a professional, and you're working that laboratory module, and you are on a lab flight. You're probably booked for every 5 minutes in the schedule to be doing something in particular, and a schedule like that is not forgiving of any delay or a slip or anything like that. So you're focused on your job. I don't think you really have time to stop and think, gee, hey, we're married and we're in space. That's probably for after the mission.
Yeah.
You're gonna be too focused on getting the job done and having everything in line.
Plus, this Space Lab J mission had two 12-hour shifts.
Mhm.
One was on the day shift, so to speak, and the other was on the night shift.
Yeah.
So they were kind of kept apart for a reason there. But their marriage lasted 7 years. They got divorced in 1999. And have lived happily ever after there. Either one of them been guests of yours at the
Oh yeah,
Space Center?
Mark is with us quite often, and as you'll recall, Mark worked on one of the Hubble repair and servicing missions, doing
Yes.
EVA on that, and he told me a great story. After his mission, there was another Hubble repair flight, and he served as the ASP, the astronaut support person for that crew, setting switches and taking care of things for the crew. And so one night before the launch, he called his mother and said, well, I'm down here in Florida. I'm supporting this crew that's going to go up and work on the Hubble Space Telescope. And his mother paused and she said, I thought you told me you fixed that telescope. And Mark said, well, yeah, there are a series of repair and upgrade missions that we have for the telescope. She said, oh, okay. So they talked a little further. And just before she rang off, she paused one more time and she said, now, if you broke that telescope, you can tell me, you know that, don't you?
Moms.
Your mom is always going to be mom.
That is a
Yeah.
great story on there. That's
Mark
awesome.
Mark is with us a couple of times a year, and he's a wonderful storyteller. And one of the things that he did during his career was not only to do the first test flight of the Safer Jet backpack, but he also helped develop that system.
Oh, did he?
So when you do something like that, they say, well, congratulations. Now go try it out.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
He shows some breathtaking pictures of him flying outside the orbiter's payload bay. And in one, he's hovering over the payload bay looking toward the spacecraft. And they take his picture. And he said, you'll notice that I'm facing toward the spacecraft. He said, I never turned my back because I didn't want anybody to take off and leave me there. But he said, how do you think I felt during that time? Enthusiastic, happy? I'm watching everything I do. This is
Wow.
absolutely everything to test the system out, to do it by the numbers, and to do it right. You do have occasion when you're within the confines of the payload bay to perhaps look around and enjoy the view, but when you're out there away from the spacecraft itself, you totally focus on testing that system, make sure nothing goes wrong.
The last untethered spacewalk ever was on this mission 30 years ago.
That's
Right,
correct. Yeah,
right.
absolutely.
And this was their safer it was called.
Right. Simplified Aid for EVA Rescue.
There's the acronym.
Yeah.
Straight up there. Yeah. And we had Mike Leinbach on Friday. You want to check out Launch Director Mike Leinbach. had some great stories about Charlie Blackwell Thompson, who he
Uh-huh.
handpicked on there. But on this, on these EVAs, everyone's always tethered. There's something going on there. They don't want to do any untethered. And he brought up the fact that what if one of those thrusters would stick?
Mm-hmm.
There ain't no way that you just goodbye,
Sure.
see you later. And did that ever happen?
No, yeah, obviously.
Gemini 8.
Oh, yeah, on
Yeah.
a spacecraft, not on a
spacecraft,
safer.
Yeah.
But certainly on Gemini 8, we had that one a thruster fail open, and they had to basically shut down that entire RCS system, or the, I think it was the OAMS system, and then go to ring B on the RCS to bring the thing back under control. So.
And we have that component in our gallery. It had a piece of solder rolling around it in there, incredibly.
And solder
in our museum.
Solder has been the bugaboo of a few flights in the program. Apollo 14, when they were getting ready to do the descent burn to go down to the moon, they were getting an intermittent abort light. And it was like, if this thing triggers after we fire the engine, it could abort the mission and cause the ascent stage to separate and go to rendezvous with the CSM. So they came to believe that it was a piece of solder bouncing around there that was making this occasional short. And the guys at MIT had to write an entire program that Ed Mitchell had to type in on that keypad after the engine ignition, but before throttle up. Get all that stuff in so they could maintain control of the vehicle and make a successful landing, which they did. If you go to YouTube, look for the complete landing tapes for Apollo 14, the complete descent, and you'll hear that whole process taking place. And on the screen, you'll see the chyrons describing what's being done and what is being talked about and so forth. It's an excellent resource.
Huh.
Yeah.
It's interesting that Ed Mitchell had to do that. We had a gentleman who passed away, Bob Pearson, who trained all the astronauts in the simulator at the Flight Crew Training Building, and he said that he had to give extra teaching to Mitchell, that he just had a hard time grasping the computer type angle of it, and Mitchell even wrote him a nice little signed thing, said thank you for keeping me after class. In there.
Well, of course, as LEM pilot, Ed was actually the flight engineer. Al did the flying, Ed did the flight engineering.
Right.
So that those keystrokes would naturally come under his purview. But nevertheless, no matter how much training you've had, when something like that comes up so suddenly, and you've got a finite time limit to get that done, no pressure there.
With a big clumpy glove on.
The gloves on, right? Yeah, you're fully suited. You had the hard suit on. You had the helmet and gloves, everything.
Marty, do we have any comments or questions? We're approaching our home stretch here with Nick Thomas. Hope you've been enjoying another Stay Curious with this wonderful warehouse of knowledge out there. So Nick, we appreciate you adding all the color to these pictures here. Yes, Marty.
A follow-up question for Larry Buskar, talking about the Astronaut Encounter. Is there someone there every day?
Yes, every day. We have an astronaut there every day that we're open for business. And the schedule, once again, is the Astronaut Encounters are at 11 o'clock and 3:15. Our autograph opportunities in the two gift shops at 12 o'clock. We do an autograph op at the main gift shop up on the second floor. And at 4:15, we do an autograph op in the gift shop over at Atlantis.
And if you live on the Space Coast, why aren't you there frequently? It's you get your $100 season pass, which is the best $100 I spend every year, and free parking, and go hear an astronaut every day of the week if you want, and get their autograph. And they love it. You've got your whole stable of regulars, but Bruce Melnick's done a good job of getting you some new ones this year.
We've now got 40 men and women in the office, and so that's a lot of folks and a lot of assignments. But every one of them, they enjoy it. It means a lot to them. It's an opportunity for them to kind of give back to the American taxpayer who put them in space in the first place, and again, a chance to make that personal connection with these people.
And if you missed, if you're coming to the Space Coast, you got Guy Gardner here the next 4 days. And then Winston Scott's the 18th through the 20th.
Mhm.
I will not miss Kathy Thornton. She's going to be out there the 21st and the 24th. We have her blue flight suit in
Yep.
our women's gallery in there. And Jose Hernandez will be
Yeah.
an interesting guest there. And Anna Fisher closes out your October there. So,
September.
your September and October. And then I got a note there, Crew 5 launch, maybe September 29th.
Yeah, that's how it's targeted.
Busy, busy, busy.
There's never a dull moment. We just successfully launched our 38th mission from the KSC Cape complex, and when I first got there back in 1987, 87, we were averaging 12 launches a year. Now we've done 38, and the year's not even over yet.
Yeah, not even 3/4 over.
Mhm.
Here's some beautiful pictures of the launch of STS-47. You can say they look like all the different launches, but you have been to Marty's been to every shuttle launch. They've all got their little nuances and beauty of their own, don't
Yeah.
they, Nick?
It's remarkable. We'll have people come back and they'll see their second shuttle launch, and they'll say, well, this one didn't sound like the last one. And that's probably true, because that sound wave is affected by many things. It's affected by temperature, air density, humidity, and even wind direction. So yeah, 2 shuttle missions can sound totally different when they take off. Usually on a good cold morning, you get a nice kind of a deep basso profundo rumble as she took off. On a hot summer day, you get this crackling cacophony coming from those 2 solid rocket boosters. So yeah, each mission has its own individual characteristics and quite often its own sound.
I love the sights and sounds that you're describing, but is there an odor to it? That from the SRBs.
You really don't want an odor. That's one of the things that you're looking for. You don't want any of the residuals from those propellants blowing over. In fact, at the press site, they would give a notice. They would remind the folks at the press site, if this wind shifts, if we get the wind coming our way, there's a possibility of granules of this contaminant coming down from the sky. And if that happens, just take your car straight to a car wash.
There you go. Larry Putzgar. Okay, we got say hi to some of our friends there, if you would.
Oh, okay. Well, listening in here, we have Mark Uziak and Keith Sowell, Robert Katz, Larry Putzgar, Cynthia Rossi, Tom Usiak, Carla Christian, Dave Strange. Stangy. I'm sorry.
He's strange because he's from Michigan and
he probably gets
a Go Blue fan. I'm Buckeye.
He probably gets quite enough of that. Thank you. And let's see. Christopher Mc, Robert Law, William Whiting, Ashley Kendrick.
Hey Ashley, that's my daughter's grandma.
Outstanding.
We share grandbabies, is what I'm trying to say.
Larry P. and
Larry Pushker's asking.
Okay. Is that Jim Lovell?
Yeah.
Good deal.
If he'd ever be at the Astronaut Encounter.
No, we haven't worked with Jim.
Yeah.
Regretfully. Okay. But to all of you who are listening in and watching today, thank you very much for joining us. It's always a great pleasure to be here, and we hope you enjoy watching and listening as much as we enjoy doing it.
Thank you. I'd say over half of them have seen you, and you've held their camera. All right, I forgot to put a picture of you in there, taking
pictures
of holding everybody's, not camera, holding their cell phone.
Cell phone or whatever.
Because you have taken hundreds and thousands of pictures.
I think so.
And there. But I know, good to see you, Robert Law. He's in Dundee, Scotland.
Oh, okay.
And,
very good.
He'll probably wear a kilt next time we see him at the Space Center. Christopher Mc, an educator I know that's been out there to see. So thank you, everybody. It is important to our nonprofit. Reach out to other people and tell them to watch. Stay curious on YouTube, Twitch, Spotify. Just like Cliff Watson is, my buddy in Pomona, Australia.
Oh, Australia.
All
very
right.
Good. Excellent.
So how's Tuesday? We want to get through, Monday Night Football here, mate. So tonight will be okay. But how's your Tuesday doing there? You having a good brekkie?
Yeah.
Down there. So I met him during the Great Eclipse.
Oh, okay.
Up here in there. So Nick, going to end our little program here again, looking at the shuttles of the month, and these missions were launched today in space history. You talked about your friends there, Gemar on STS-48. John Crichton was the.
He was a commander
I'd
on
like
that.
to see a talk with him.
Yeah.
It was a commander. Kenneth Reitler was a pilot. Mark Brown and Buchley. Jim
Buckley. Buckley.
Buckley, is that how you say
That's
his name?
Buckley,
Okay.
right?
And then Sam Gemar, Charles D. Gemar, but he goes by Sam.
Charlie. He goes by Sam because as a young boy, he and his friend, they were both named Charles, and to keep them from getting mixed up, they just said, "Okay, we're going to call you Sam." So that's how I got Sam. Yeah.
Okay. Whether you like it or not, we're going to call
That's
you
it.
Sam. And then the other mission we have here, launched today, go forward, Mark, there we go, is the crew of
51.
51. And 51 has on it, tell us the guys there. You know.
Okay, we've got Carl Walsh. We got our commander, Frank Culbertson. Bill Reed was our pilot, and our other two mission specialists were Jim Newman and Dan Bursch. I had the pleasure of meeting this crew about 2 or 3 weeks after the mission, and they came in to do a public presentation at the IMAX Theater. And coincidentally, that was the day, that morning, I'd gone to the airport, the Tycho Airport, and I'd checked out for my pilot certificate after a long time of instruction, but I was officially a pilot on that day. So when I met the crew, I shook hands, we talked, and I said, I got my pilot certificate today. And to celebrate, I handed out cigars. So a friend of mine said, let me get this straight. You got your license to fly a Cessna. These guys flew in space, and you're handing out cigars? I said, yeah. I said, because as pilots, we all went through that same process. So it's pilots is pilots.
Pilots is pilots, that's right. On the far left is Frank Culbertson. Why don't you share the special moment in time that he has as the commander of our International Space Station 21 years ago?
Frank was up on orbit when 9/11 occurred, when the two planes crashed into the World Trade Center. They took some memorable pictures from space of that event. And Frank spoke very eloquently about the feeling, I guess he would describe it as being a feeling of helplessness, of seeing something like that and understanding the scope and magnitude of it and not being able to do anything about it. But at the same time, he emphasized the fact that our country would come back from that terrible attack. And he, as I say, he spoke very eloquently about that and put it into a very special context as no one else could have done.
Where did he speak of that at? Where'd you hear him do that?
He was on board the International Space Station.
When he was talking
watching
about
it.
it. Yeah, that famous pictures, we shared them on Sunday there. And he was the only American not on the Earth during that horrible day, which we all shall not forget. Everyone's got their own stories about that. Well, we certainly appreciate these stories today with Mr. Nick Thomas. And we know that all you have on there. And anything else you want to say about this day in history? Quite a lot of cool things going on.
So many cool things happening and so many people who've made it possible. And I would remind everyone that aside from the names you see on these patches of these flights that have occurred in this time in history, there are thousands and thousands of more people behind the scenes. Flight controllers, launch controllers, training teams who made these moments possible. And I think the astronauts themselves will always make the effort to recognize those people. And I think that anytime we talk about these flights, to put it into context, that we remember the men and women who work behind the scenes anonymously, but who've made these missions possible and are as much as a part of that crew as the crew members themselves. So we take the time out to remember all these men and women who've given so much value to this program and have made so much possible for us and for future generations.
Well, thank you, Nick. That is eloquently said there. They have touched our lives with their good deeds in space, and now they touch our lives with the good deeds they're doing here on Earth to promote the next generation and share their experience, strength, and hope with the missions they accomplished there. So, Marty, thank you for a great Streamlabs program today. We thank all of you for watching us. Nick Thomas, thank you so much, sir.
Thank you again, Mark.
Taking your time
Appreciate
there. And we look forward to having Nick back again, maybe next month, and come up with some more stories from the Shuttles of October. Tomorrow, probably do some Shuttles of the month. We've been very busy with some of the programs we're going to try to pull off this fall as our nonprofit. Wednesday, I'm pretty sure that Mr. Hugh Harris will come. He's feeling a lot better.
Shout out to Hugh.
Yeah, and we'll give Hugh a call here in a minute. Make sure he'll be with us Wednesday. Get well to Terry White. Had some minor surgery on there, and Terry will do our Shuttles garage. Hopefully later this month. And Mikey Haddad.
Get well, Terry.
Yep. And Mikey Haddad will do payloads on the 28th on a Wednesday there. So we're always looking for great space workers. They're all great. We're looking for great stories from these space workers to share with you to help you stay curious. And so let us know how we're doing. Marty, we've been doing this 530 some episodes now. So we're about to get it down pat. 630 some. Yeah, he looked at me like, hey, I am putting up with you 100 more episodes there, 600 episodes. So we got a lot of great mojo here at the American Space Museum, and it's because of people like Nick Thomas and Marty Winkle that support us, and we're very grateful for that. So on behalf of our wonderful director, Karan Conklin, who keeps all this together, we hope that you can come to our museum. Until then, I'm Marquette saying come join us again to bridge the space between us.